Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening UK, Yorkshire Kris Weekly, and on this week's episode we're potting up our exotic seedlings. So here we've got a tray of spider flower seedlings, and these were sowed 4 weeks ago now, and they're in this coir-based compost and they are ready to pot on. So I'll just get the tray out. We can see the seedlings here. We can see we've already got adult leaves on many of these. We've still got a few still just germinating over the last few days, because germination can be quite sporadic with cleome or spider flowers, but we've got a dozen or so, maybe 20 that definitely need potting on. So we need to transfer these very carefully into their own small pots. So what I'm going to do is get a little stick or dibber just to get around here, to get into where the roots are, to loosen the compost, and by holding a leaf I'm going to pull these out and pot these into their own individual little pots. And I'll still keep this tray going because there are seedlings still developing, and then I'll repeat the process in a few weeks time with these seedlings when they're big enough to handle. You want to do this before the plants get too big, because a lot of seedlings don't like root disturbance, so it's best to do it whilst they're small, and also when they've got enough nutrients, that they've been using the nutrients in this compost. They don't want to be exhausting all the nutrients in the compost before you pot them on, because you're weakening the plant and you'll never get the full vigour back in the seedlings when you pot it on and plant it out later in the season. So it's best to get them out before they get too big, and in this case this is about as big as you want, where we've got the second adult leaves appearing. So let's get these out of the compost. So we've got this nice developed seedling here of cleome, and I'm just using the end of a spoon. I'm just going to just press around there just to get underneath it without disturbing the roots too much, while holding it by a leaf. I'm just going to press up. That should loosen away. And then if I just pull that up, there we've got a nice seedling with a decent root on it already. Got quite a few actual fibrous roots all the way through here, so it's really like this compost. And then we've got a pot of just multi-purpose compost here, and I've not pressed that hard down in here, so it's quite open, that compost in the pot. Just going to make a little hole with my finger in the middle, and then we're just going to gently press that in there, press the compost round it quite firmly, and we're burying it at the same level that it was grown in this compost. So this is a peat-free multi-purpose compost. That is a nice potted up seedling in this, I think it's a 7cm pot, and it will quickly outgrow this, so it will probably only stay in here a couple of weeks before we pot it on into a larger pot. The reason we don't go from this seed tray to a larger pot straight away is it will hold far too much water, a larger pot, and they won't have the roots to soak up that water straight away. So you need to go to a smaller pot first of all, and then go to a larger pot once it's outgrown this space. But you don't want it in this pot for too long. If it gets too root bound in here, then it will suffer when you transplant it into the next size pot. So you've got to watch at this stage of the year to be potting on plants as soon as you need it, rather than waiting too long. So the only other thing I need to do with this one is to give this a nice water, and I'll keep this in bright light in the greenhouse for the rest of April into early May, and then it'll be planted out in mid to late May, its final flowering position in the garden. Okay, so that's one seedling done. Like I said, there's another probably 20 or so at least in this tray. We've got the tobacco flowers where there's literally hundreds come up, and I'll be potting them up as well. Echiums on this tray, and many more behind me to be potting up, so that'll definitely keep me busy for the rest of the day. Just one note on the tobacco flowers, or Nicosia, you can see here we have got absolutely loads, and you might want to think, let's try and save every single one. In essence, I've obviously oversown here and there's too many seedlings. It is best to basically pick out the strongest and don't try to grow the weakest seedlings because they'll never really match the strongest seedlings. So it is survival of the fittest, keep the strongest plants and do away with the weaklings. Now the zinnia seedlings, I don't need to actually pot on any further because I've done these into individual 7cm pots already, and you can actually see we've got roots just starting to come out of the bottom, and because there's one seedling in each, then I can let this grow on a bit further until we've got a few adult leaves, and again this will be potted into a larger pot in a couple of weeks before it then goes into its final position in the garden in mid to late May. So zinnias really don't like having their roots disturbed, that's why I've sown them into individual pots already. So the beauty of growing lots of seedlings in one tray is it saves on a lot of space. So here we've probably got as many seedlings as this big tray of all these pots here, but this taking up, less than half the space. Obviously I'll need to pot these on as well, like we've just done with the spider flowers, but it's meant that if we had really bad germination with this, I've not wasted a huge area on the greenhouse by putting them into individual pots. Obviously bigger seedlings need individual pots anyway, like we've got in the propagator just behind us, we've got the castor oil plants and they're in individual pots already because they're big seeds and they grow very, very fast. Generally it's good to have lots of seedlings in a tray unless they really hate root disturbance like the zinnias here, so that's why these are in individual pots. You might notice we've got a few where we've got 2 or 3 seedlings in. What I'll do with this is I'll nip out the weakest one and let the strongest one grow on. So here we've got 3, this is the strongest one, so I'll just take these out, leaving just one to grow on for a few more weeks, like I said, before I pot on. These I'm not going to try to keep, I've got plenty here and these will be composted. Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening UK. Join me next week, we'll be doing more in the garden.